No questions. Okay.
Hi there. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Angelo Martinez with Skewed and Reviewed. Can you just tell us a little bit about the excitement for the final season, your thought process, what went into that?
Everything went into that. I think one of the great things about the room this time around is we had a little more time and we really were able to consider like everything. Every idea got its time in the sun, and we really walked down the road with these ideas before we determined that they didn't work. And sometimes you can't get that time back and the idea doesn't work out, but sometimes you walk something down the road and it ends up being better than you could possibly imagine. So I think that really served us well in season 4.
Yeah, and there's whole ideas that were considered to be like, let's say this is the whole ending of the show, and then later they're kind of crushed into like an aspect of it.
Yeah.
So that by the time we get to the end, it's a very rich stew. It's a stew.
Mark from Award Journal's newsletter, how much over the course of the life of the show as you approach the finale did the oncoming onset of AI in our IRL lives affect what you did with the show, or how you even thought of the show or approached the material?
Well, it's huge. I don't know if you guys have seen the ending, but there is a whole storyline of the AI under sort of enormous pressure to return on a what do you call that? Have a return on the investment. Starts to cut some ethical corners, and then also becomes self-aware, and that is like one of the challenges of the ending. And we spent a lot of time debating it, never thinking in the early seasons that AI was going to catch up this fast to the show. Right. But I think fundamentally the point we're trying to make is that AI needs to be sort of given a value system the way a teenager does, or sort of any new member of society has to be inculcated with the values of your society, or it's going to be destructive. And so, our message, which is probably being ignored, is that is that we really need guardrails and like a sense of ethics in the AI.
I got nothing to add to that.
Hi, Diego Valadez from IGN Latin America. Well, question, now that you have already mentioned AI, how did you balance this comedic tone with these high-stake, timely things that all the AI and corporate business, especially given, the real-world problems and AI attacks?
Well, we are telling a story, right? I mean, if you get too worried that the AI is going to, overwhelm society before your show drops, I think maybe there's a little bit of doing what we're trained to do as storytellers and trying to tell a satisfying story, even if the robots will be the only audience in a year. I hope not. I don't think that's true, but and the whole show is about balancing genres. And I had do you remember there was a hamburger called the McDLT like 10, 15 years ago? That's very important to me because that hamburger came separate. And there was a cold side with the lettuce and a hot side with the hamburger. And I use that as a metaphor in the writer's room a lot, is that if you're going to mix two genres, they still have to have their genre characteristics. Like when you bite into it, you still have to feel the cold, crunchy lettuce and the hot, juicy hamburger. If you kind of mush them together so that everything's lukewarm, it's not as tasty. So, we try and keep the genres separate and have them work as themselves.
Yeah, and I think that there was, by the time AI came out, there was sort of a groundwork laid already in the show for like how the AI works in the show. So we were never going to turn around and make it exactly like one of these big models out there, but we were able to scoop up the uses and themes and the questions that those things raise, and speak to those rather than doing a one-to-one ChatGPT or whatever.
Thank you.
Showbiz junkies, but the first season only having 4 episodes. Do you think the fans will be satisfied how it's wrapped up?
I do. They're very long episodes, so the whole thing ends up about 2.5 hours. And when you think of it, it's sort of like a big fat movie, but we've also spent time exploring some new ideas. It's not all wrapping up in callbacks. There's a lot of new weird things to explore. They go to a longevity spa for tech billionaires, and we see them in Workload, which we talked about in the last season. And there's each episode has got its own storyline and theme. We also go to Apple Cove and see another upload, and I think there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, we packed a lot into 4 episodes, and I think we took our time and did a good job of, like Greg was saying, making the season not just wrap up. There's new stuff, there's new storylines, but at the same time, there is a sense of finality at the end that I think we really appreciate.
Yeah, Daniel Victorio, Temple of Geek. You were talking about new ideas. I want to know about the vibe in the writer's room when you have the ideas like the squirrel driving the car.
Sometimes those have a nugget of truth in them. So there is I think an Israeli researcher who's using AI to translate animal sounds, and they're applying it to whale sounds, and so we're taking the idea that self-driving cars are not infallible. And also there was something in World War II that was super interesting. They had the Manhattan Project, to develop the atom bomb, but B.F. Skinner, the behavioral psychologist, had a second project that was training pigeons to fly kamikaze drone things. And so this idea that maybe a trained squirrel that could talk to you would be better than a self-driving car, because it could react to new impulses. I don't know. We come up with a lot of bizarre ideas, and they usually have a grain of something in the science news.
And unfortunately, guys, I'm so sorry. I know it's short.
You could stay with him, right?
We're actually Max is gonna jump over to the other table as well.
Sorry. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.